My dad's a senior manager at a big company. You're way out of your league. The room began to buzz with murmurs. It was our high school reunion, and everyone was reminiscing about the good old days. Laughter filled the air as we talked about work, marriage, and even our favorite hobbies. The atmosphere was light, and it felt just like our high school days. But then, James's comment shattered the peaceful mood. I stepped forward to give James a final warning. His self-centered attitude hadn't changed one bit. I thought he'd have matured after dealing with life's hardships as an adult, but I was the fool for thinking so. Up until now, I had held back from stooping to James's level, knowing it was childish. But not anymore. As an adult, I could now confront James from a position I had earned. Why don't you call your dad and all the executives? My voice, firm and unfamiliar even to me, caused our old friends to fall silent. Shall we cancel the overseas project we've been working on with your company? My name is Jason. After graduating college, I moved out and have been living alone ever since. I'm married to my job, a sad reality for a few years now. I'm 45, single, and without a girlfriend. Most of my co-workers are men, and they try to cheer me up, saying, "You're still young. Don't worry." But instead of their pity, I just wish someone would introduce me to a nice woman. Today is our high school reunion at a hotel. It's a Sunday, and I had planned to hit the salon to freshen up beforehand, but when my work phone rang, I gave up on that idea. Crap! I sighed after reading the email, and in the end, I arrived late to the reunion. People teased me for being late as I walked in. I apologized and adjusted my suit, which was in disarray because of my running. Rough day? Did you run here from the office? Sarah Parker handed me a glass of water as she said this. I gulped it down, finally catching my breath. Thanks, Sarah. You're as attentive as ever, President Parker. What are you talking about? And look, your tie's crooked. She fixed my tie, like she was fussing over a younger brother who couldn't dress himself. I felt a little embarrassed and joked around. Big sis, I can tie my own tie. Should I just tighten it and strangle you a little? Just kidding, I'm sorry. The group burst into laughter. This kind of playful banter had always been our class's trademark. Sarah was a brilliant student council president back in the day. She was one of the most beautiful girls in our grade, and even now, she hasn't lost her charm. Just as we were enjoying the friendly atmosphere, a voice I wished I could forget cut through the room. No wonder it's loud here, you are here. Honestly, I didn't think you'd have the guts to come. I figured James would be here, but I didn't expect him to start something the moment I arrived. Long time no see, James. Man, you look pretty worn out, Jason. Big reunion, and you're still stuck at work, huh? Yeah, the project I'm working on ran into some issues. Trying to show off like you're some big shot? If you were really any good at your job, you wouldn't be stuck working on the weekend. James sneered and looked to his little posse for approval. He talked as if I was responsible for the project's problems. I wanted to say something back, but it would be wild to ruin the mood, so I just laughed. But that only seemed to rile James up more. Pathetic. Just another pawn, working like a dog. You'll never walk the elite path like me. You'll always be stuck taking orders. He kept laughing, though it was unclear what was so funny. Even his followers were looking uncomfortable. I sighed quietly. James's inability to read the room hadn't changed a bit. Oh yeah, Sarah's here today, isn't she? James shifted his attention to her. Sarah's slender shoulders tensed. Everyone knew that back in high school, James had relentlessly pursued her. He'd asked her out several times, but she turned him down each time. With his good looks, James probably had never experienced rejection from women. That's why he couldn't forgive Sarah for turning him down. Unable to let it go, he'd even used his money and influence to drive away any men who showed interest in Sarah. So, Sarah, I hear you got married. Huh? Wait, really? You never told me. I blurted, surprised by the news. I hadn't known Sarah had gotten married. We'd been friends since elementary school, so I just assumed she would have told me. Or was that my own arrogance? But Sarah looked incredibly uncomfortable. How do you know that? My friend knows him too. Small world, huh? James smirked with a knowing grin, and sensing something off, I glanced at Sarah. She was glaring at him, her brows furrowed. And yeah, I know about the divorce too. Sarah's face twisted in sadness. Seeing that, I decided to step in. What's the deal, James? You still have feelings for Sarah? After all those rejections, I gotta say, you're more persistent than I thought. I casually moved in front of Sarah, and I felt her lightly tug on my sleeve. Who rejected me? I've never been rejected. You're an idiot for believing her lies. Her ex left her because they couldn't have kids. He moved on. And boom, his new woman got pregnant right away. No use for a woman who can't have children, so she got tossed aside. James. There are some things you just don't say. I yelled, my voice filled with anger. Even some of the women in the group scolded him, but James just smirked, unfazed. I didn't care if he insulted me. But I couldn't tolerate him mocking Sarah like that. I didn't want to start a fight here, but James's words were filled with so much venom that I couldn't hold back anymore. I took a step toward him, but Sarah, standing behind me, pulled me back. When I turned to look at her, she had tears welling in her eyes, and she shook her head slowly. It's the truth, so there's no point in getting angry. Just the fact that you're upset for me is enough. I'm okay. Sarah dabbed at the tears that were on the verge of falling with a handkerchief. Seeing her like that, I didn't know where to channel my anger. I've always been weak when Sarah cries. Normally so strong and composed, she never let herself cry in front of others. When things got tough and she needed to cry, she'd sneak up to the roof and cry in a quiet corner. I knew that, but all I could do was watch from afar, unable to do anything for her. Once I was sure she had stopped crying, I'd hand her a handkerchief, and she'd blow her nose into it with a big grin, laughing as if to cheer me up instead. That's just the kind of kind-hearted person she is. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Do you need another handkerchief? Only if you don't mind it getting covered in snot. Even in a moment like this, Sarah could sense my unease and try to lift my spirits. She really was a kind-hearted woman. Just then, something cold splashed across my face. A few people gasped in surprise. I looked down and saw my suit stained with red wine. Jason. Quite the move you pulled there. You were ignoring me and getting all cozy with her, James sneered. I quickly glanced at Sarah to make sure nothing had spilled on her, relieved to see she was still dry. The crowd started to grow, and the area became more restless than before. I'll buy you a new suit later. Something way nicer than that boring one you're wearing. I guess you're still just a lowly employee, huh? I looked down at my stained suit. It was a custom-made piece, far more expensive than any off-the-rack suit. Not only was James terrible at reading the room, but he clearly had no eye for quality either. He always boasted about his designer suits, but they honestly didn't suit him at all. His bright, flashy outfit looked like a desperate attempt to look young. I don't care about a suit. What's shocking is just how rude you've become. Spare me the poor man's pride. This is just a little entertainment. James laughed as he went to grab another drink. Jason, are you okay? Sarah, who had stopped crying, was now trying her best to dry off my wet suit. Some of the other girls helped too, but my white shirt was probably ruined beyond saving. I wasn't sure how clean my suit would be with dry cleaning. He's really getting out of hand. Making fun of Sarah like that was disgusting. With James out of sight for a moment, everyone started voicing their outrage. I tried to calm them down, knowing things could get worse if James overheard. Don't get too worked up. According to him, this is just for fun, right? I'll deal with him, so please stay out of it. I knew firsthand how much trouble he could cause if anyone else got involved. But the group's anger wasn't going to die down easily. And truthfully, I couldn't forgive what he'd said about Sarah either. Sarah, if I stick around, he's just going to get more obnoxious. Do you want to leave together? She thought for a moment before shaking her head. There's something I need to say to James. I didn't want to bring it up here, but I promised I would. She pulled out her phone and explained the situation to me. Just as she finished, James came back, clearly in high spirits. I glared at him without meaning to, which only made him smirk. What's that look for? Do you want me to pay for your suit after all? I already told you, I don't need it. What, are you dying to buy me a suit? James's face twisted in annoyance, and then he glanced at my left hand. You're still not married? Man, being a low-level employee working weekends must mean you can't even get a girlfriend. That's pretty sad. His remark about my job rank sparked a reaction from those around us. Even his group of lackeys seemed disgusted. But James didn't care about the tension in the air. Landing a job like mine is basically rigged from the start. No matter how much regular folks kiss up, promotions, transfers, even getting fired, it all depends on the boss's mood. You wouldn't believe how many useless employees I've gotten rid of. As James bragged about his so-called achievements, he downed another drink. Cheap booze, he muttered, clicking his tongue in disapproval. I couldn't help but be impressed, in a way, by that personality of his that just had to mock everything. I'm getting married soon, by the way. She's 21 and used to be a model. She is a little ditzy, but gorgeous enough to be worth it. You really shouldn't talk about your fiancé like that. No matter what you say, it's useless. You're just unlucky with women. This really is terrible booze. That wine earlier was at least drinkable. Why don't you go grab some more? After all, the entertainment isn't over yet. That's right, the real show was just beginning. I discreetly sent a message to someone. As the reunion chatter continued, the teachers from each class were invited onto the stage. One by one, the teachers took the microphone and shared their memories from back in the day. Every now and then, they added a funny anecdote, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. Even we forgot about the earlier tension and joined in the laughter. I still remember Jason's story from swimming class. Mr. Hayward, our class teacher, said. I stiffened and turned to look at him. Mr. Hayward smiled slyly. During the 25-meter crawl test, he swam the whole length without coming up for air. Hey! That's because I can't swim. What? Still can't swim? I'll lend you a kickboard from the school so you can practice. The room erupted with laughter. By the way, this whole exchange wasn't off the cuff. I'd suggested it earlier, and Mr. Hayward had played along. And yes, it's true, I still can't swim. Hey, is that what you were talking to Mr. Hayward about earlier? No comment, I said, flashing a smile. Sarah, though slightly exasperated, smiled back at me. I've always liked that about you, Jason. Ha! I let out a surprised, almost ridiculous sounding yelp, and Sarah tried to stifle her laughter. What? You're joking, right? No comment, she replied, pressing her index finger to her lips. The gesture made my heart skip a beat. Just as Mr. Carter finished his speech, James suddenly jumped on stage. He snatched the microphone and stepped forward. The moment our eyes met, I had a bad feeling. Now, for tonight's special event, let's find Jason a girlfriend. If there's any girl out there willing to date this poor workaholic, please raise your hand. Oh, by the way, I've got a 21-year-old fiancé, so there's no point for raising your hand to be my girlfriend. He literally looked down at us as he spoke. So this was the entertainment he'd mentioned earlier. I glanced up at James, who had earned the ire of every woman in the room, and made my way onto the stage. As you've just heard, I'm Jason, and yes, I'm looking for a girlfriend. Ladies, please, feel free. I played along, making light of it, and the room erupted in laughter. It's my own goodwill to at least be a prelude to the story I'm about to tell. He clearly hadn't expected me to stand next to him. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the frustrated look on James's face. Oh, by the way, James might be needing a girlfriend soon too, so keep your eyes open, everyone. What the hell are you talking about? James growled, grabbing me by the collar. Gasps filled the room, and I raised a hand to calm everyone down. Then I glanced over at Sarah, signaling her. It seems like you didn't realize, James, but I work as a wedding planner at the venue where your wedding's set to take place. James's face paled instantly. I'm just one of the assistant planners, so we haven't spoken directly. But I've had a few conversations with your fiancé about the wedding. It turns out his fiancée had been growing suspicious of James, as they rarely spent time together due to his work. Despite it being their wedding, James was completely uninterested. Whenever his fiancée asked for his opinion, he'd just say, "You can decide. Do whatever you want." Feeling overwhelmed by pre-wedding jitters and the loneliness, she even cried in front of Sarah, questioning if James truly loved her. His fiancée asked me to find out how James really feels about her. She said she'd accept whatever he had to say. So I forwarded everything you've said tonight to her. Sarah, how dare? James immediately pulled out his phone. He was probably calling his fiancée. But as the call failed to connect, panic began to show on his face. No matter how many times you try, it's pointless. I got a message from her earlier saying she wants to cancel the wedding. James slammed his phone to the floor, glaring at Sarah with a furious expression. It looks like your engagement fell through, James. Wanna join me in the dating scene? He shoved me hard, causing me to stumble. The teachers moved to stop James, but I couldn't let him cause any harm to them. I shook my head, signaling them to stay back, and faced James head on. James apologized to Sarah. What? She's the one who should apologize. She ruined my wedding. That woman was just after my money, so I don't want her anyway. He was always like this. James believed that flashing his wealth could make anyone do whatever he wanted. And after that, he would always follow it up with, "My dad's a senior manager at a big company." He never realized how much those words devalued his own worth. The successful one was his father, not him. James lived a privileged life thanks to his father, but he took it for granted. After today, I was done with him. I swore that to myself. Earlier, you bragged about firing all those useless employees, right? What about it? Do you really think those employees were incompetent? And are you even in a position to make those decisions? James faltered, unsure of how to respond. Just as I thought. James wasn't even close to having that kind of authority. He was only an assistant manager. There's no way he could handle something as serious as staffing decisions. The person with the power was his father, the head of HR. While it was questionable how much influence James could exert through his father, that was an internal issue at his company. Not my concern. I made sure to get those who defied me fired by asking my dad. They're probably all jobless now. I was stunned. He actually admitted to relying on his father to fire people. At 45 years old, he still needed his dad to fight his battles. It was embarrassing just to witness. I couldn't help but feel sorry for anyone working under someone like him. Jason, you'd better watch your mouth, too. And what are you going to do about it? My dad's a senior manager at a major company. You're nothing compared to me. We don't live in the same world. So you'd better be careful how you talk to me. James's voice was thick with anger, but I just sighed deeply. His self-centered nature hadn't changed one bit. I had hoped that adulthood in the real world would have humbled him somewhat, but I was foolish to think that. Up until now, I had refrained from lowering myself to his level, thinking it was childish to respond in kind. But things were different now. As an adult, with a position I'd earned myself, I could stand up to him. Go ahead, call your dad and all the executives. My voice was calm but firm, so much so that the room fell silent. What are you talking about? I'm saying this as the head of the overseas division at Oakwood Trading Company. I pulled out a business card from my holder and thrust it toward James. The room erupted in murmurs. And no wonder. Oakwood Trading Company is one of the top companies in the U.S. Including its subsidiaries, the group has a total of 20,000 employees. It's a name everyone recognizes. Jason, did you get another promotion? Your dad must be proud. It just worked out that way. My dad wants me to take over as CEO soon, but I'm still not ready. That's right, I'm the son of the CEO of Oakwood Trading Company. Our company operates as a family business, with my father as the CEO and my grandfather as the chairman. I've been groomed as the next CEO, studying business management for years. Originally, I was supposed to work directly under my father as his assistant. But I insisted on making my own achievements. So I took the regular recruitment exam and worked my way up to become the head of the overseas division. Of course, I didn't do it all on my own. While I worked incredibly hard, I was also lucky to have great colleagues and bosses. It's also a testament to the hiring standards my family has upheld for generations. Having ambition is not a bad thing. Wanting to work for a company that values you is fair. But that alone won't make you successful. What's the most important thing in work? This question is always asked during the final interview at our company. If you answer it wrong, no matter how talented you are, you won't be hired. What's essential in work? In the end, it all comes down to trust between people. Without trust, you can't achieve top performance in anything. That's the philosophy of our company. Wait, Jason's the heir to that Oakwood Trading Company? Sarah, did you know about this? Yeah, we've known each other since elementary school. Yes, Sarah, my only friend since elementary school, knew about it. Or rather, she figured it out on her own. She was the only one who noticed my SP, mistook them for stalkers, and called the police. She even pulled the fire alarm and shouted for help. My father rushed to the police station as my legal guardian, while the useless bodyguards were reported by a grade schooler. And Sarah thought she was protecting me. I still vividly remember that day. I glanced at James. His mouth was hanging open as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Deciding that the entertainment had gone on long enough, I stepped down from the stage. By now, the company crisis should have been handled. I checked my watch, debating whether to leave. This can't be real. It's all lies. James's face was red with anger as he shouted, and I was beyond exasperated. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. But a notification chimed on my phone, and I frowned, sensing something bad. The message confirmed my suspicion, and I clicked my tongue in annoyance. I was annoyed that he had done something foolish. Stop stalling. Just spit it out. The overseas project we've been working on with your company. Shall we cancel it and start from scratch? My sudden shift in tone left James speechless. The reason I was late to the reunion was because confidential information from the joint project with James's company had leaked. A secret merger was in the works, and the project with James's company was partly a test of their capabilities. Yet, despite this, a leak occurred. It was a major incident, just when we thought we'd established a friendly relationship with them. The entire project team was called in, scrambling to find the cause. Chris, the leader on their side, quickly traced the source of the leaked data. He promptly notified all the relevant parties. Although I, as the leader, should have been there to clean up the mess, Chris graciously took over my share of the work, saying I should enjoy my reunion. This morning, Chris from your company handled the issue with the project. He apologized, admitting it was entirely their company's fault. Here, I said, showing him the email on my work phone. As soon as James saw the authentic signature, his face went pale. It was clear that an emergency executive meeting would be held over this. The email didn't go into specifics, but it hinted that there was a traitor within their company. Naturally, any project with such a company would be canceled. Rather than a merger, it would likely result in their company being absorbed and turned into a subsidiary. Mass layoffs were expected. I'll make sure this issue is thoroughly investigated. Trying to deceive our company won't go unpunished. After the layoffs, let's see how many employees are left. As for you, James, you might want to ask your dad if you'll still have a job. James didn't even bother with a parting remark, storming out of the hall with wide strides. His lackeys exchanged glances, shrugged, and followed him out. At the time, I didn't know, but it turns out that the employees James had gotten his father to fire were later rehired by our company. Their skills and experience were top-notch, so much so that our HR department couldn't understand why they'd been let go in the first place. So, what ended up happening with that project? A few days after that disastrous reunion, I invited Sarah out for dinner. Surprisingly, she had been living close to my apartment all this time. I regretted not inviting her out sooner. Of course, the project was scrapped. The traitor was fired, and their leader, Chris, was demoted for failing to prevent the leak. As expected, their company was absorbed under the guise of a merger, becoming a subsidiary. James's company now officially belonged to ours, and with that, a massive round of layoffs occurred. Their president, Mr. Robert, took the opportunity to demote James's father, Nick. And James himself was promptly laid off. What about James's fiancée? Well, let's just say today's generation is pretty clever. Because of the timing of the wedding, they only had to pay 50% of the cancellation fees. You're the one who called off the wedding. You should pay. No way. This is all your fault. Why should I be the one to pay? I heard that James's wedding plan was top tier, all because of his desire to show off. They had multiple outfit changes, which made it way more expensive than the average. Even the half-price fee was higher than an average wedding. Having just been laid off, James refused to pay. His fiancée, in turn, turned to Sarah for help, crying and pleading with her to fix the situation. She's actually a fairly well-known fashion model. So, we worked out a deal to have her sign on as our company's exclusive model to cover the costs. Women can be scary, I said with a chuckle. Sarah grinned. Watch out, Jason. You don't want to get tangled up with the wrong woman. One troublesome woman is enough for me, thanks. Well, how about getting tangled up with this troublesome woman? I stared at Sarah, wide-eyed. Once her words sank in, I could feel my face turning red. As for James, after being laid off, he managed to get a mid-level job at a small company. There, he was treated just like his younger co-workers. Of course, his pride couldn't handle it, but his father was no longer around to protect him. Apparently, James's boss is a tough woman, and it seems like he's getting pushed hard every day. I've met her a few times, and I remember she had quite a strong personality. Whether James can survive or not, that's something he'll have to figure out on his own. Meanwhile, Sarah is sitting next to me, watching TV. Since then, we've gotten really close, and before I knew it, we were meeting up at least once a week. Isn't this basically dating? When I asked her that directly, she made an incredibly annoyed face. I'd never seen that expression before, and to this day, I still can't quite define what we are. A weird face. Couldn't you have found a better way to describe it? A weird face is a weird face, Sarah said unapologetically. I was a bit irritated, wondering who she thought was to blame for that. If you keep hanging out with me like this, you won't find a boyfriend, let alone get remarried. Then, once again, Sarah gave me that same disgusted look, like she just stepped in dog poop. You know, Jason, you've always been like this. Even when a girl is clearly showing interest, you never notice. When did that ever happen to me? See? You still don't get it. I'm giving you all these signals, and you're talking about other guys? That's when it finally hit me. Sarah, I've liked you for a long time. You're so late, silly. We quietly leaned in closer to each other. Hey, are you okay? Could this be a really dangerous situation? I was on a helicopter tour with my colleagues when I ran into my ex-girlfriend from middle school. Without me asking, she introduced the older man she was linking arms with beside her. This is my boyfriend. He's a manager at a hotel company. And you? You probably flunked your high school entrance exams and are just some middle school graduate bum now, right? She said this while laughing, but then, suddenly, the pilot fell ill, and we were in an emergency situation. What the hell is going on? As my ex-girlfriend yelled in panic, I calmly said, I'll fly the helicopter instead. What? My name is Shawn. I'm a captain at an airline. Since I was a kid, I've always loved planes, and I would often ask my dad to take me to the airport. It was one day during a holiday. I was sitting in the airport lobby, looking through my favorite airplane encyclopedia. Suddenly, a voice called out to me from the front. Do you like airplanes too? I looked up to see a girl about my age with blonde pigtails. She pointed to my encyclopedia and looked at me with curious eyes. My name's Ashton. The next flight is about to take off. Want to watch the planes with me? Before I could answer, Ashton grabbed my hand and pulled me along. Though I was a bit confused by her boldness, I was excited to have found a fellow airplane enthusiast. She told me she often visited the airport to see off her father, who traveled a lot for work. As we watched the plane waiting quietly on the runway for its passengers, Ashton tilted her head in wonder and murmured, "Planes are so huge, but how do they even fly?" I opened my encyclopedia and eagerly shared what I knew. The wings create lift, which pushes against the air, and then the jets thrust the plane forward and up into the sky. I went on explaining, even though she hadn't asked, passionately talking about how planes worked. Ashton listened in awe, and when I finally finished, she asked, "Do you want to build airplanes someday?" "Yeah." I nodded enthusiastically, but Ashton, with a thoughtful look on her face, placed her hand on her chin. Then, noticing a pilot passing by, she lit up and said, I think I like pilots more. They look so cool flying the plane in their uniforms, don't they?" At that time, I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I was just happy to have a friend who shared my love of planes. So I made a carefree promise. "Okay, I'll become a pilot. And when I do, I'll take you on a flight." This encounter, for better or worse, ended up shaping my entire life. When I started elementary school, I saw a girl in my class who hadn't changed a bit, still with her blonde pigtails. "Ashton, is that you? Do you remember me? We met at the airport." I couldn't contain my excitement as I approached her. "Oh, you're the airplane lover from back then. We're in the same school now? What a coincidence. It feels like fate, doesn't it?" We hit it off immediately, and even though we were still just kids, I couldn't help but feel like we were destined to meet. "Do you remember the promise we made back then?" "Of course I do. I said that when you become a pilot, I'd make you my husband." Ashton, mature beyond her years, even made a little engagement promise. From that point on, I seriously began working toward becoming a pilot, studying not just school subjects but also learning about navigation, weather patterns, and geography. To protect my eyesight, which was crucial for becoming a pilot, I even avoided playing video games. I also tried to avoid watching TV as much as possible, except when necessary. As a result, I couldn't keep up with what was popular at school and found it hard to join in on my classmates' conversations, making my school days feel long and tough. However, I remembered the promise I made to Ashton, and as long as I could stay close to her to fulfill that promise, I convinced myself that I didn't need any other friends. So, I kept working hard alone. Seeing my dedication, my parents began to support me as well. They never discouraged my dream. Instead, they bought me books to help me study to become a pilot, and on weekends, my dad would take me go-karting for practice. One day, while traveling with my family on a trip that was both for studying and for leisure, I got separated from my parents in the crowded airport. Still just a child, I panicked and burst into tears. Just then, a man wearing a pilot's cap approached me. "Hey, are you okay? Are you lost from your mom and dad?" "Yeah." "Well, how about we go find them together?" He took me to the Lost and Found Center. An announcement was made throughout the airport, and I sat and waited until my parents arrived. While we waited for my parents, he stayed with me, keeping me company. "Do you like airplanes?" "Yeah." "Well, guess what? I'm a pilot." "Really?" "I want to be a pilot when I grow up." "How did you become one?" "That's great. I had to study really hard to become a pilot. It was tough, but you can do it too. I look forward to seeing you flying planes one day, wearing a cap just like mine. Yeah, I'll do my best. Talking with him gave me the courage I needed, and before I knew it, I wasn't scared anymore. My parents arrived shortly after, and I parted ways with the kind pilot. But his words stuck with me, and from that day on, he became the pilot I looked up to. I'm going to be a cool pilot like that man, I thought. As I entered middle school, my schedule got even busier. Naturally, I started spending less time with Ashton. But since she knew about my dream of becoming a pilot and supported me, I thought she would understand. However, Ashton gradually began expressing her frustrations. All my friends go on way more dates with their boyfriends. Don't you care about me at all? I was so overwhelmed with studying that I didn't always have the patience, and I ended up snapping at her some days. I'm studying hard to keep my promise to you. Can't you see that? We started arguing more and more, with our conversations always turning combative. After several rounds of this, my relationship with Ashton began to deteriorate. Time passed without us being able to fix things, and then, one day, as I was preparing for my high school entrance exams, something happened. On my way back from the library after a study session, I stumbled upon a scene that left me frozen in place. Ashton was walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar guy, looking pretty cozy. I didn't have the courage to confront her then, so I went home and started overthinking it. Maybe it wasn't anything. Maybe it was just a close relative or something. I convinced myself of that, but the next day, I decided to ask Ashton directly. Hey, who was that guy you were with yesterday? Who cares? We're not married or anything, so it's not like you can control who I spend my time with. I'm free to hang out with whoever I want. Besides, you don't pay any attention to me, so I was just killing time. Ashton said this without a hint of remorse. But I tried to draw a rebuttal from my dry throat, but I realized that I had despised Ashton. So, I couldn't say anything back and just walked away. Right now, I just need to focus on my studies. I tried to convince myself, but her words kept swirling around in my head, and I couldn't concentrate at all. After all, my goal of becoming a pilot was tied to the promise I made to Ashton. If things were like this between us, did becoming a pilot even matter anymore? What was I working so hard for? I began to lose sight of the meaning behind chasing my dream. In the end, I lost focus on my studies and ended up failing to get into my first choice high school. When Ashton heard that I failed my exams, she was furious. What? My boyfriend is repeating a grade? That's unforgivable. You put up with me all that time saying you were doing it for me, and now this? Don't ever contact me again. An engagement promise from when we were kids? That's not valid. And with that, she broke up with me on the spot. Wait, hold on. I almost managed to explain myself, but watching Ashton walk away so easily made me realize that our relationship was truly over. I went home and curled up in my room alone. What have I been doing all this time? Did all my efforts lead to this mess? My bookshelf was crammed with books on pilot licenses and aerodynamics. I considered throwing it all away, but then my eyes landed on one particularly worn-out airplane encyclopedia. Yes, the very book I had on the day I met Ashton. Looking back, it was that book that brought us together and sparked my dream of becoming a pilot. Suddenly, memories from my life flashed before me. The nights I stayed up late studying, rubbing my tired eyes. My parents, listening with smiles as I talked about my dreams. And that day at the airport when I saw the man who became my role model. I asked myself again, what do I really want to do? And the answer I came to was that I didn't want to give up. At first, it was all for my promise to Ashton, but over time, it had become more than that. I realized that pride, expectations, and admiration were driving me forward. With that, I pulled myself together and continued studying. I had actually secured a spot at a different school, so I moved on to high school without having to repeat a year. Afterward, I earned my commercial pilot license at aviation school, then gained flight hours as an instructor, and finally got hired by a regional airline. Through intense training, I eventually became a co-pilot. Even as a co-pilot, I kept honing my skills alongside the captain, and by the time I was 32, I had been promoted to captain. To celebrate, my friend and colleague, Walter, who joined the airline at the same time as me, offered to take me on a helicopter tour. On the day of the tour, as Walter and I were waiting our turn, I heard a familiar voice from the line next to us. "What? You're here too?" I turned to look and saw Ashton, arm in arm with a middle-aged man. She had grown into a mature woman, though I could still see traces of her from our middle school days. Without me asking, she began to boast. "Oh, this man? He's my boyfriend, Tony. He's a section chief at the hotel chain owned by this airline. And you? I assume you gave up on becoming a pilot? Probably just a middle school graduate now, right? And, seriously, 2 guys here? What? Is this like a date or something?" She laughed mockingly, taunting me. Walter, overhearing, looked like he was about to explode. "What the hell are you talking about? This guy." But I hurriedly covered his mouth, not wanting to have anything to do with her anymore. And I whispered to him, "Sorry, you're going to have to play along with me here." "Yeah, that's right. You seem to be doing well. Have a nice flight." I responded as calmly as possible and refused to react to anything else she said. Eventually, Ashton and Tony's turn came, but they weren't being called in, and they were getting visibly irritated. Finally, Ashton snapped and started yelling at the staff. "Hey! We've been waiting for 30 minutes. What's going on?" The staff member, looking troubled, responded. "Well, actually, the pilot of the helicopter fell ill a short while ago, and we're currently trying to figure out a solution." Hearing this, Tony joined in, raising his voice. "What? We paid a lot of money for this. Get it sorted out now. You can't find another pilot?" The staff was cringing and saying, "I'm sorry." Walter, who was watching the commotion, quietly whispered in my ear, "Hey, looks like this is your chance. Show them what you've got and teach that awful woman a lesson." Back then, despite being incredibly busy, I had managed to get a helicopter license while working as a flight instructor. So I was perfectly capable of flying one. I really didn't want to get involved with Ashton, but a small part of me wanted to prove something. Reluctantly, I stepped forward and spoke to the staff. "If it's okay, I can fly the helicopter instead." As soon as I spoke, both Ashton and Tony stared at me in stunned silence. I showed my pilot's license to the staff, and they radioed upstairs to ask for further instructions. After waiting a few minutes, the staff came back and said, "Thank you for helping," and escorted me to a room where I changed into the prepared uniform. After a quick briefing, I was set to board the helicopter. As I was preparing, Ashton and Tony were led over, looking confused. When Ashton saw me in uniform, the doubt about me achieving my dream vanished from her eyes. Her expression completely changed, and she stared at me with admiration. Feeling the awkward tension, I couldn't help but throw in a bit of payback. Are you two on a date? I'll make sure it's a wonderful flight under the night sky. I'll do my very best to make it special for you. Ashton, still in shock, couldn't respond. I ignored it and started giving the tour narration as if talking to myself. To your right, you can see the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of New York. It was a gift from France in 1886 and stands as a symbol of freedom and democracy in the United States. And to your left, you'll see Manhattan. Though initially surprised, Ashton gradually started listening to my commentary, and by the time the tour ended and we landed, her eyes were practically sparkling with admiration. Tony, seeing this, had a nervous look on his face. He straightened his suit, reached into his pocket, and handed me a tip with a calm demeanor. Thank you for the wonderful flight. Here's a little something for your trouble. Thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of your evening, I said, feeling relieved the job was over and ready to escape Ashton's gaze, but then Ashton, glaring at Tony, cut in. What do you think you're doing? I was planning to tip him and ask him out for dinner, so don't get in my way. Before I knew it, she was leaning out of her seat and wrapping her arm around mine. Tony and I both blurted out, "Huh?" at the same time. Isn't this guy your boyfriend? Hesitantly, I asked, and without any shame, Ashton boldly replied. Well, he was. But you're my fiancé, right? Now that we've reunited, the old promise takes priority. I don't really know what you're talking about. You were the one who broke up with me, remember? And you said yourself that our childhood promise meant nothing. Besides, I don't have feelings for you anymore, I coldly stated, trying to get a handle on the bizarre situation. But Ashton refused to give up. That's a lie. You became a pilot for me, didn't you? No, I did it for my own dreams and pride. Though I do appreciate you for giving me the initial push, I added with a smile, not wanting her to misunderstand. Ashton stood there, stunned for a while, before snapping out of it. Whatever. I'm done with this, she huffed, turning back to Tony. Hey, what should we eat tonight? She asked, her voice suddenly sweet. Tony, now glaring at her with cold eyes, replied, I guess I'm not your boyfriend anymore, right? I had no idea you were this shallow. We're done. Don't ever show your face to me again. With that, he pushed her with such force that Ashton fell on her backside on the spot. You're so mean, Ashton cried, bursting into tears. Tony, clearly uncomfortable, muttered under his breath, I should be the one crying, and hurried off. The staff came over to check on Ashton, asking, Are you all right? That's when she seemed to realize everyone was watching her. Her face flushed bright red as she muttered, I'm fine, giving a small bow before quickly walking away with her head down. Watching her leave, I let out a wry smile, thinking, I can't believe I ever had feelings for someone like that. I turned to Walter and apologized for how things turned out. Sorry, man. I ruined your celebration. Nah, it's fine. That was pretty entertaining, he said with a laugh. Then, with a mischievous grin, he started teasing me. I'm just glad you actually had a girlfriend back in the day. I was starting to wonder about you. But man, that ex of yours was something else. That's a part of my past I'd rather forget. Let's never bring it up again. As we were joking around, the staff came running after us. Apparently, the pilot who had been feeling unwell had fully recovered. Hearing that, Walter and I decided to go ahead and take the helicopter tour ourselves. Thank you so much for today. The pilot sat inside the helicopter, apologizing profusely for having to miss the flight and expressing his deep gratitude for me stepping in. Then, out of the blue, the pilot offered me a job. "I heard your flying was flawless. If you're interested, why not come work with us?" At first, I thought he was joking, so I laughed and replied, "Oh no, it wasn't that great." But from the look in his eyes, I could tell he was serious. So I put on a serious face as well and politely declined. I've wanted to be an airplane captain since I was a kid, so I still want to keep flying planes. The pilot looked a bit disappointed but smiled and said, "I hope we get to work together someday." A few days later, I was reprimanded for flying another company's helicopter without permission from my own employer. However, since it was an emergency and I had the support of the pilot and staff from that day, I didn't face any penalties. Now, my flying skills are in high demand, and my schedule is packed with flights. I've been so busy that I hardly get time to go home, and I'm still living a lonely bachelor's life with no girlfriend in sight. But I genuinely feel grateful to Ashton for inspiring this dream, and to my parents, who supported me, as well as the pilot I met at the airport. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because of these people, I'm able to feel fulfilled in my work every day. Now, I head to the skies once again, hoping that one day I can become someone's inspiration too. I was told I'm just a nuisance because I can't communicate. Ha ha. She laughs while watching her friend chatting happily on the other side. In the bustling reception hall, she stands alone in the corner, with a sad smile that makes my chest tighten painfully. "I'm really hopeless, aren't I?" Hearing her weak murmur, so unlike her usual self, I instinctively took her hand. And I pulled her up, almost forcibly. "We're going, Emily." "What? Going where?" Without answering Emily's question, I headed straight toward our destination. Maybe this forceful approach is just an annoyance to Emily. She might end up hating me for it. But even so, I wanted to strike back at those who mocked her. "My name is Ryan. I'm currently unemployed, having just quit my job, and I'm 27 years old. Because of my father's job, I lived in various countries when I was a child. From a young age, I spent every day trying desperately to adapt to unfamiliar places where I couldn't speak the language, following my father's advice. Thanks to that, I learned English and was fortunate enough to use it in my work up until now. However, my experiences as a child have cast a long shadow over my life. There were people who mocked me just for being a foreigner, but I finally managed to find friends and a place where I belonged. Just when I was starting to settle in, I had to move to another country again. Each time, I cried, sometimes got angry, and my parents would look sad and apologize. Over and over again. To protect my heart, I developed a way of coping. Don't get attached to anything important. Keep relationships shallow, and don't get attached to places or things. While it lessened the sadness, everything started to appear colorless. People called me indifferent or cold, but if I let those words affect me and got attached to something again, I'd be the one suffering. Living like that, I ended up with few relationships. I don't even have anyone I'd call a friend, let alone a partner. No hobbies I'm passionate about, and no zeal for work. In the mix of resignation and anxiety that is my daily life, there's a dream I keep having. There is someone standing in front of me. The face is blurry, just like the surrounding scenery, so I can't see the expression clearly. The child holds a single flower. "Thank you." A cute but somewhat awkward voice says, "Maybe someday." I was speechless. When I try to respond to the voice, which sounds like it's about to cry, I wake up. I've had this dream many times before. When I wake up, a faint loneliness lingers in my chest, a mysterious dream. I don't know who the child in the dream is. In the first place, I don't even know if this dream is a memory or just a figment of my imagination. But for some reason, whenever I have this dream, a small spark of motivation begins to warm up inside me. Maybe I should give it a try. I don't know if it's because the dream is encouraging me, or because I feel obligated to act after having it, but this time, too, the dream somehow flipped my motivation switch. A few days later, I attended an interview at a foreign-owned company I had applied to, and I managed to find a new job. The company I joined is an international manufacturer called C&B International. It's a position in their Japan branch, and they hired me for my language skills and experience in foreign companies. On my first day at work, while making the rounds to greet my colleagues and superiors, I met a woman named Emily. She was the daughter of the company's president and my supervisor, the same age as me. With her rich black hair tied back, her slender arms and legs, and her gray suit perfectly tailored, she looked every bit the competent boss. She also had sharp eyes that looked great with glasses and well-shaped lips that exuded a mature allure for her age. I forgot I was at work and found myself captivated by her. She seemed to be looking at me as well, or so I thought. Oh, this is perfect timing. Emily, this is Ryan, the new employee I was just telling you about. The man standing next to her spoke with a gentle smile directed at me. Hearing his words, I snapped out of my trance and hastily greeted them. Nice to meet you. My name is Ryan. I look forward to working with you. When I looked up, Emily was still staring at my face. Her expression seemed complicated, as if a mix of emotions were swirling inside her. The gentleman beside her looked surprised by her reaction. Do you two know each other? Indeed, her reaction and the way she spoke made it seem like she recognized me. But I had no recollection of meeting her before. I'm sorry, but I believe this is our first time meeting. At my words, Emily's face suddenly changed. It's nothing. I'm sorry. A smile appeared on her face, but her eyes were not smiling. Her tone and manner were polite, yet there was a certain sharpness to it. Since that first encounter, she has treated me coldly every day. Even someone as dense as me can sense it. She seems to dislike me very much. Maybe I did something wrong during our initial introduction, or perhaps it's just a matter of personal incompatibility. Today, too, I asked her to check the meeting documents I had prepared. After reviewing them, Emily sighed once and crossed her arms. What are you doing? You can go now. Ha? Or what? Are you saying you're such a helpless idiot that you can't do anything without my instructions? Oh, no. Thank you for your time. She looked at me sharply and spoke in that cold, harsh tone. This is how it always goes, so her attitude towards me is as cold and strict as ice. Did I do something wrong? As I pondered this while working, the phone rang. A colleague at the desk next to me answered. However, the caller on the other end was speaking English, and quite rapidly at that. Struggling to understand, my colleague seemed flustered. I quickly scribbled "I'll take over" on a note and showed it to him, then took the call. The inquiry was just about confirming an appointment, so I quickly responded and hung up. The colleague who had initially answered thanked me, but I felt Emily's gaze from across the room and instinctively looked her way. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and then she glared sharply at me before deliberately turning away. Noticing our exchange, my colleagues around us gave me sympathetic looks. Why is Emily so cold only to Ryan? They wondered aloud, and all I could do was to return a strained smile. Whatever the reason, I no longer cared. Being coldly treated by Emily, who was not only the president's daughter but also my direct supervisor, had already broken my spirit. Looks like this job isn't going to work out either. Given how much she dislikes me, it's making my work environment incredibly difficult, and even though I'm usually indifferent to others, it's starting to affect me mentally. It hasn't even been 3 months since I started this job, my shortest stint ever, but I found myself scrolling through job listings, already considering my next move. It was after the day's work, as everyone was getting ready to leave. "Hey, Ryan, see you tomorrow." "Oh, Mary. See you too." The cheerful voice belonged to Mary, a colleague from the same department. With her bright hair in a ponytail and a refreshing smile, she was a different kind of beauty compared to Emily. She's the same age as me, and it seems she's been friends with Emily since their college days. "You look pretty tired. Are you okay?" "Haha, yeah. Hey, how about going out for a drink if you'd like?" "What?" It had been a while since I'd been asked out by a woman, so I couldn't help but let out a surprised voice. Seeing my reaction, Mary giggled with amusement. "Is it really that surprising? Come on, get ready. I'll introduce you to one of my favorite places." Well, Don't be shy. Okay? Honestly, I was tired and just wanted to go home, but with Mary's persistent urging, I ended up being half forced into going for a drink with her. As we clinked our glasses for a toast, I wondered what I should talk about with Mary, with whom I hadn't spoken much beyond greetings since I joined the company. "By the way, Ryan, your phone handling today was impressive." "Oh, no, it was nothing. Your English is really good. Did you study abroad or something?" "I lived overseas because of my father's job." "Oh, I see. That explains why you're so fluent. It's really not a big deal." "Oh, come on, no need to be so modest." Mary laughed as she said that. Thinking that it's not really about modesty, I took a sip of my beer. A brief silence followed. I worried I might have offended her with my lack of conversation, but then she asked, "By the way, I noticed Emily was giving you a hard time again today. Are you okay?" Mary's expression had shifted to one of genuine concern. "She seems to be particularly harsh on you. Do you have any idea why?" "No. She's been like that since our first meeting, so I think she just dislikes me. Maybe she finds me repulsive or something. At least, the one saving grace is that even though her demeanor is cold, she's always thorough about work matters." "I see. If you don't know the reason, there's not much you can do about it. But if you ever have any trouble with Emily, just let me know, okay? I've known her for quite a while." "Huh? Oh, Emily? We've been together since college. We have different tastes in clothes, but we're about the same height and have similar tastes in food. So we got along well." Indeed, Mary and Emily are about the same height and both have great figures. They're both quite beautiful. Mary is the lively, energetic type, while Emily seems more like the quiet, refined type. If these two were standing together, they'd surely draw attention, I thought. Maybe because we were always together, people often compared us, Mary continued. "Like rivals, or something?" "Rivals, huh? I've never thought of it that way." Mary laughed loudly, her mouth wide open. I wondered if Emily, who only ever showed me a cold expression, ever laughed like this when she was with Mary. Well, we ended up in the same company due to our long-standing connection. But I'm probably the only one who can say anything to that president's daughter. So, if anything comes up, don't hesitate to talk to me. I'll set her straight. Mary winked playfully as she said that. Her tough, big sisterly words made me chuckle despite myself. I doubted I'd actually have anything to consult her about, but having a dependable senior around made me feel a bit more at ease. After about an hour, we left the bar. As we were heading toward the station, I reached into my pocket. The pocket where my travel card should have been was empty. I checked the other pocket, but it wasn't there either. I even checked my bag just in case, but that was a dead end too. What's wrong? Sorry. It seems I left my travel card behind. I'm going back to the office to get it. Ryan. I didn't expect you to be so absent-minded. Well, see you tomorrow. Yeah. Have a good night. After giving a small bow to Mary as she left, I turned and ran back toward the office. I explained the situation to the security guard at the entrance, and he let me in. Since it was already past quitting time, the office was quiet. However, as I got closer to my department, I noticed a faint light still on. Is someone still here? It was unusual for anyone to be working overtime at this company, which generally discouraged it. Curious, I stepped inside and saw someone working at a computer in the dimly lit corner of the room. Emily. What? Ryan. What are you doing here? Surprised by my sudden call, Emily jumped up with a loud clatter. Oh, I came back to get something I forgot. We stared at each other for a few seconds, and an awkward silence filled the air, much like our usual interactions. I quickly rushed over to my desk and searched for my travel card. Ah, there it is. I picked it up from where it lay on the floor. Good night. Wait. I was about to leave with a quick goodbye, but Emily unexpectedly stopped me. I braced myself, unsure of what she would say, but her words were surprising. You're English. It was so clear, and you answered their questions so fluently. I was impressed. I've been able to speak English since I was a child because I lived abroad. I've used it in my work for a long time, so I can handle business situations. I was taken aback by the absence of her usual cold demeanor, and I responded normally. She widened her eyes at my answer, then the next moment, she smiled a bit sadly. I see. I wasn't allowed to study abroad because my family thought it was too dangerous. Mary studied abroad, and she has such a good memory. Her pronunciation is as clear as yours. I guess we can't really improve unless we listen to and speak with native speakers. Well, I do think talking to native speakers is the best way, but even in Japan, there are plenty of ways to learn. There are schools, and with the internet, you can even have private lessons from home. Something in my words seemed to make her think for a moment. Then, she looked straight at me. Seeing her gaze, I almost took a step back, but she spoke before I could. Then, Ryan, you should teach me. Huh? Why me? Despite the fact that she was my boss, the words slipped out of my mouth. Just do it. That's an order. She pointed her finger directly at me with determination. No way. That's just ridiculous. I've never heard of such an order from a boss before. I sighed and looked back at Emily with a skeptical expression. Why don't you ask Mary? She's your friend, right? You knew. I heard from Mary. She said you've been friends since college. Wouldn't it be easier to learn from a friend than from someone like me? Thinking of how coldly she usually treated me, I couldn't help but make a slightly snide comment. My words seemed to make her flinch, and she started fidgeting with her hands in front of her chest. That's true, but it's hard to ask Mary. I've always been compared to her, who can do everything so effortlessly. It frustrates me to lean on her even now, as an adult. Emily's expression softened, looking a bit vulnerable. It was so different from her usual demeanor that I felt a sudden pang in my chest. Then maybe you should consider taking some classes or something like that. I stammered out a response, but Emily shook her head. There's going to be a reception soon, not just with people from Japan, but also from the head office and branches around the world. I'll have to present the new project as a representative of the company at that time. Since some of the materials are confidential, it's hard to ask someone outside the company. So, please. Emily had come so close that she was looking up at me. I could see her eyes behind her glasses trembling slightly. All right. If I'm good enough. Having been treated so coldly since joining the company, her sincere attitude caught me off guard, and I found myself agreeing almost instinctively. Well, I'll just handle it casually. I thought after agreeing, but then Emily's face lit up with a smile as she said, "Thank you, Ryan." Her usual cool demeanor softened a little. There was something almost girlish about her smile. It felt strangely nostalgic, like a feeling that made me want to cry, a fleeting, inexplicable sensation wrapped around me. No problem. I couldn't take my eyes off her smile. Holding my left chest to quiet the loud thumping of my heart, I could barely manage that response. From the next day, we decided to start the lessons immediately, borrowing a meeting room after work. I borrowed the materials from Emily in advance, translated them into English, and handed them to her. I also picked out and summarized words and phrases that were difficult to understand, even with a dictionary, and commonly used terms in business contexts. Emily also asked me to prepare additional materials, so I was quite busy with preparations for the upcoming reception. When we started the lessons, I noticed that while Emily had a solid grasp of grammar, her expressions were rigid, and her seriousness made her facial expressions stiff as well. I found myself getting tense just talking to her. "Emily, try to relax a little more." "Relax." "Okay. As you are now, you might take even a joke too seriously." "A joke? It's a reception, so it's not just business talk. There'll be small talk, too. Let's work on being able to make some jokes, Emily." "Got it. Teach me how to make jokes." Emily's earnest request, made with such a serious expression, was so endearing that it was hard to hold back my laughter. "Ryan, did you just laugh?" No, I didn't." "You laughed." "Hey. I'm serious about this, so don't make fun of me." Emily puffed her cheeks and gave me a playful glare. However, this expression lacked the coldness of before, so it felt more like a friendly exchange. During the lessons, Emily no longer treated me coldly. In fact, her demeanor became much softer than before. When I first agreed to these lessons, I thought I'd just wing it. But seeing Emily diligently take notes and consistently review and prepare made me more invested in teaching her. I began to prepare thoroughly for each session. The more seriously we both took the lessons, the faster Emily improved, and the more enjoyable the sessions became. I was sure Emily felt the same way. Or at least, I wanted to believe that. Mary had told me earlier, if anything comes up, feel free to consult with me, but in the end, I never had anything to discuss. Incidentally, Emily had asked me to keep these lessons confidential, so no one else knew about them. Not that I had anyone to tell, anyway. The idea of a secret lesson between just the two of us made my heart race, but she was still my boss. I had to keep any strange thoughts in check. Besides, Everything important in my life had always slipped through my fingers. I couldn't afford to give this any special meaning. But then, one day during a break, I was wandering around the floor with the archives, looking for a quiet place, and I saw Emily. It was just her back, but I couldn't have mistaken it. I hurried after her, but she disappeared. Did I lose her? As I turned to head back, I heard a voice. The door was slightly ajar, so I quietly approached and peeked in. The voice was soft, but it was unmistakably Emily's. From what little I could hear, it seemed she was practicing the parts of the pronunciation she had struggled with during the previous day's lesson. "Emily, you were practicing here." Despite her cool demeanor, her role as a manager, and the image of the company president's daughter, she wasn't naturally adept at everything. Of course, her overall abilities were high, which was why she held her position. But what I saw during our lessons wasn't just her excellence. There was a slightly clumsy side to her. She wasn't good at memorizing things, took a lot of notes, and was even conscious of the cute way her handwriting looked when she wasn't careful. It was an unexpected side of her. Once, during a lesson, Emily spoke about herself. "I've always been slow to catch on, whether it's studying, work, or even remembering people's names. So, I take lots of notes and look over them again and again, making lots of mistakes along the way. And only then I can finally stand on the same line as everyone else. It's embarrassing, so please keep it a secret." She said this with a shy smile. As for English, which she asked me to teach her, she confessed that she had struggled with pronunciation since her student days. That's why she had wanted to immerse herself in an environment with native speakers, whether through studying abroad or short stays, until the correct pronunciation became second nature. Although she hadn't been able to study abroad during her school years, she had still tried everything she could, studying in classrooms, listening to English songs and audiobooks. Hearing this, I genuinely thought, she's an incredible person. Instead of giving up and thinking, this is as far as I can go, she kept pushing herself closer to her ideal. That kind of effort and mental strength can't be half-hearted. And Emily had been steadily building that up all along. She's so different from me. A person who stands in the exact opposite place of someone like me, who has always given up. Someone who has what I don't. At first, I was captivated by her beautiful appearance, but now that I know a little more about her, I'm drawn to the beauty and strength inside her. But Emily is my boss and the daughter of the company president. She's not the kind of woman who should be around a man like me, who has a habit of running away and repeatedly changing jobs. I saw a glimpse of Emily's profile through the slightly open door. She was staring intently at her self-made lesson notes, repeating the words over and over. The lessons would be over soon. After that, I wouldn't have any more time like this to spend with Emily. So I decided to put a lid on the feelings that had started to grow inside me. It's what I've always done, after all. No big deal. And with that thought, I quietly left the area. By this time, there were less than 2 weeks left until the reception. "Ryan, starting tomorrow, we're going to do some intensive training for the final touches." Emily told me this at the end of that day's lesson. "Got it. Just make sure you keep up, okay?" "Of course. But maybe you could go easy on me a little." "No way. I'm going to push you hard, so be prepared." I'll do my best." After Emily's slightly anxious reply, we both laughed. I felt like we had grown closer in a way I couldn't have imagined when we first started. And because of that, I was feeling a bit sad that the end was approaching. There would only be a few more times to walk side by side out of the office. When the lessons end, we'll just go back to how things were. Lately, I had been repeating that to myself like a mantra. The next day, after work hours had passed and I was hastily finishing up the tasks left on my desk, Mary came over to me. "Hey, Ryan, are you free today? I was thinking it'd be nice to go for a drink again. There's something I want to talk about, too." Since that last time we went out for drinks, Mary had been swamped with work, and I'd been equally busy with my tasks and the lessons with Emily. So we hadn't had much chance to talk. It was an appealing invitation, but I already had a lesson scheduled with Emily today, as usual. "Sorry, I have plans today. Is there any way you can reschedule?" Mary's voice seemed a bit tense. It's going to be a bit difficult. I've been busy lately and won't have much free time." "I'm really sorry." "I see. I understand." "Mary." Sensing that something was different, I tried to get a closer look at her face, but she quickly flashed me a bright smile and said, "Well, if you're busy, then it can't be helped. But you have to promise to go out with me next time, okay?" "Deal?" "Got it. Just let me know when, and I'll make time." At first, I was worried about her seeming displeased, but in the end, she agreed, and I felt relieved. However, the strange feeling I sensed from Mary at that moment wasn't just my imagination. "Ryan, do you have a moment?" Me? "But you're the only one I can ask right now, so please." Okay." Ever since I turned down her invitation the other day, Mary had started coming to me during work hours. Whether it was for help with simple tasks or questions that honestly anyone else could handle, she kept turning to me. "Hey, Ryan, can you help me translate this English document?" "Mary, I'm sorry, but I'm really swamped right now." "Could you ask someone else?" "But I wanted to ask you, since you're so good at English. Honestly, I don't have the time right now. Besides, for something like this, you can easily handle it yourself, right? If it turns out to be too much, just let me know then." "Please." "Okay. Sorry to bother you when you're so busy." Mary tried to persist at first, but maybe because I had clearly refused. She seemed a bit dissatisfied but didn't say anything further. I kept an eye on her during my tasks, but she seemed to be working without any issues or signs of struggle. What was that all about? I couldn't quite understand Mary's sudden requests, but I finally felt a wave of fatigue wash over me now that I was free from them. Agreeing to help was one thing, but turning someone down was also pretty exhausting. While I was slumped in the break room, Emily came over to me. "Ryan, so here you are. You look really tired, though." "Oh, Emily." I straightened up from where I had been leaning against the back of the sofa and faced her. I don't want to show her any unseemly side of myself. For some reason, that's how I feel. Does it really look like that? Actually, Mary's been relying on me for everything lately, and dealing with that. "Mary?" "Oh, maybe. Do you have any idea why?" Emily nodded slightly in response to my question. "Maybe about a week ago?" It was just a coincidence, but Mary saw me handling something in English. She seemed really surprised. So I told her I've been studying a lot. Last week. That was around the same time I had turned down Mary's invitation to go out for drinks. But how could that have anything to do with me? Maybe she's feeling pressured because my English, which I've always struggled with, suddenly improved. Just because of that. Even if that's the case, why is she bothering with me? Could it be that Emily mentioned that I was helping her? But she did ask me to keep it a secret. Sensing my thoughts, Emily quickly denied it with a flustered expression. "Oh, of course, I didn't tell her I was learning from you. Ha ha. It's okay. I wasn't doubting you. Thank goodness." Emily looked visibly relieved at my response. "Because if I did say that, I'm sure." She mumbled something under her breath that I couldn't quite catch. "Sorry, what was that?" "Nothing." She shook her head quickly, looking a bit panicked. I couldn't quite understand why she seemed so flustered, and I tilted my head in confusion. Still, seeing her expression change so quickly, so different from the cold demeanor she had when we first met, made me smile naturally. "Anyway, there are only a few days left until the reception, so let's do some more intensive training today." "Of course." "Wait, is that why you were looking for me?" "Ha! No. I just happened to be passing by. Anyway, see you." "Oh, Emily." As I watched Emily's retreating figure, her words, "only a few days left until the reception," kept repeating in my mind. Lately, it's always like this. I keep thinking about how my time with Emily is coming to an end. The reception, huh? I wonder if it could get postponed somehow. No, that's just wishful thinking. I laughed at myself for such a silly thought. I've lived my life avoiding attachment, and yet here I was, wishing, I hope it could last longer. Even I was surprised by this change in myself. That's how important my time with Emily had become to me. If I want more time with Emily, I need to put in the effort like she does. I had completely forgotten about the issue with Mary from earlier, and my mind was filled with memories of the fun days of lessons with Emily. A few more days passed, and finally, the day before the reception arrived. Our secret English lessons were coming to an end. For a final test, Emily read the speech she would be presenting, with perfect pronunciation. When she finished the last sentence, I gave her a big round of applause. "Emily, that was the best performance yet." "Really? Was it okay this time?" "It was perfect. Congratulations on graduating at the top of the class from Ryan School." I bowed deeply with a playful grin. Maybe because it was the last day, I found myself making light-hearted remarks that I wouldn't normally say. Emily looked surprised at my behavior but then gave me a bright smile and said, "Hee hee. Thank you, Ryan." That smile made me both happy and sad. My heart was in turmoil. It was the first time I'd felt this way. On this final day, I finally acknowledged my true feelings. My feelings for her. The step I had never dared to take before. Emily. What is it, Ryan?" As I opened my mouth to convey my feelings, my eyes fell on something she was holding. It was a faded bookmark made from a single flower. "A bookmark?" "Yes. It's my treasure, given to me by someone I love very much." "Oh. I see." Seeing Emily gaze at the bookmark with such a fond expression made my chest tighten with pain. It's not surprising that Emily would have someone she loves. "Ryan, Emily, good luck with your speech tomorrow. I'll be rooting for you." I cut her off, forcing a smile. "Thank you, Ryan. If it goes well, let's celebrate, okay?" "Sure." I don't really remember much of what we talked about after that. I had finally gathered the courage to step forward. But before I could express it, that faint hope was shattered. The things I cherish, the things I long for, never seemed to stay in my grasp. With a familiar pain in my chest that I hadn't felt in years, I faced the day of the reception. As Emily had said, many people were invited, and the venue was filled with a lively, multicultural atmosphere. Recognized for our language skills, both Mary and I were also attending the reception. While I was busy with the setup and other preparations, Mary came rushing over. With slightly more glamorous makeup than usual, Mary looked even more beautiful, but there was also a noticeable tension in her demeanor. "There you are, Ryan. I just got a message. They need you to handle an urgent task right away. What about the reception?" "Don't worry. I can handle it by myself. Ryan, you take care of the other task. I'm counting on you." With that, she firmly pushed me out of the venue. Grumbling internally about having to deal with work on the day of the reception, I reluctantly left the venue. I wish I could have at least heard Emily's speech. I muttered, shoulders slumped, but there was no point in complaining. I ran back to my desk and started on the so-called urgent task that Mary had mentioned. An hour and a half later, I finished the work faster than I had expected and headed back to the reception venue. The reception was supposed to last about 2 hours, so I figured I could still make it in time for the mingling session. I just wanted to catch a glimpse of Emily conversing with many people in her improved English. I felt that if I could see that I had helped her, I might be able to keep moving forward somehow. But the scene that greeted me at the venue was not what I had hoped for. There was Emily, standing off to the side, away from the clusters of people, looking lost and out of place. "Emily! Ryan!" Emily looked up at the sound of my voice. Her eyes were slightly red. Noticing my gaze, she quickly wiped her eyes and forced a wry smile. "The speech went well, thanks to you, Ryan. But when it came time for the mingling, I started hearing all sorts of languages other than English. The person who spoke to me was from France, and I got confused because I didn't understand." Then Mary came over. Emily clenched her fists tightly. "Did Mary say something?" "She told me, Emily can't speak anything but English, so just step aside." And then she walked off, chatting in French. Mary is amazing, isn't she? When did she manage to learn so much? Emily. While I was desperately studying English, Mary was preparing for today by mastering other languages too. I can't compete with her. It's so frustrating. Tears began to spill from Emily's eyes. The moment I saw those tears, I instinctively took her hand. "Emily, let's go." "Ha? Go where? It's frustrating to leave things like this, right? That's why we're going." "Ryan." Holding Emily's hand, I led her straight toward our target group. In that group were many VIPs, including those from the head office, speaking at least 3 different languages besides English. They were, in a sense, the main guests of this reception. I greeted them in English. They responded in French and Chinese. I quickly switched to those languages, introducing Emily standing beside me. They seemed to remember her speech well, and questions began pouring in rapidly. I translated each question into English for Emily. Then, I conveyed her responses back to the questioners in their respective languages. After some time, I passionately explained to them that Emily was the key figure and the greatest contributor to this reception, detailing the immense effort she had put in to prepare for this day. The VIPs listened attentively to the end and then gave Emily a big round of applause. Looking slightly embarrassed, she responded with a graceful bow. The scene was like a beautiful painting. Afterward, people continued to approach Emily one after another, and I stayed by her side as her personal interpreter. Eventually, the reception ended, and we saw the guests off. When it was just the 2 of us left in the venue, Emily spoke to me. "Ryan, I didn't know you could speak languages other than English." I was so surprised. Well, because of my father's job, I traveled across many countries and ended up learning about 5 languages. It was tough at the time, trying so hard to learn, but I guess I have to thank my father, seeing how it's useful for work now. I see. Thanks to your father's guidance and your own efforts, you were able to help me like this. Thank you so much. After laughing together, I turned my gaze to Mary, who was standing there, looking uncomfortable. Mary, why did you do that to Emily? At my words, Mary's face twisted with pain. Emily watched Mary quietly. Isn't it obvious? I wanted everyone to know that I'm more capable than Emily, that she's just a figurehead. At university, at work, my abilities have always been better, but Emily is always the one who gets all the attention. Even this speech. Why is Emily, who isn't even good at English, the representative, while I, who am fluent in languages, am just the support? Just because she's the president's daughter, that's so unfair. So, you try to interfere with the English lessons by sticking around me? I saw you two practicing together by chance. I thought if her English wasn't good enough for the speech, Emily would give up and turn to me for help. But you turned out to be more stubborn and competent than I expected, and my plan backfired. Mary turned her face away as she spoke. Emily stepped in front of Mary. Tears were streaming down her face. I'm really grateful to you, Mary. When I was isolated in college because of my family and my looks, you were the first person who reached out to me. Even after you found out I was the president's daughter, you were the only one who treated me the same. We've been together for so long. And I know this much, that you're kind, hardworking, and incredibly capable. That's why I didn't want to lose to you. I worked so hard because I wanted to stand beside you and not look like a fool. Emily, I want to keep working hard together with you. This company needs you, and so do I. So please, keep helping me. Keep pushing me forward. It might take some time, but I will do my best to be someone you can respect. So, please. Emily spoke, looking straight into Mary's eyes. Mary looked bewildered at Emily's sincerity, but after listening, she let out a big sigh. Emily tensed up for a moment. As Emily's eyes filled with anxiety, Mary flicked her forehead with a playful snap. Ouch! I hate how straightforward you are, always trusting people blindly. Honestly. Tears were welling up in Mary's eyes too. I'm sorry, Emily. I said some awful things. I was just feeling anxious. I know you're a hard worker, and I was scared that you might surpass me one day. But I won't do something like this again. Next time, I'll face you head on and compete fair and square. Mary? Yeah. I won't lose next time either. They shook hands and laughed together. Seeing them like this, I realized that they were both valuable friends and worthy rivals. I'm kind of jealous. Noticing my gaze, Mary came over to me and bowed her head. Sorry for causing you trouble, Ryan. I got a bit envious seeing how close you two had become after being so awkward at first. Wait, Mary. What are you talking about? Emily stammered, flustered for some reason. But don't worry, I won't interfere anymore. Still, I'd be happy if you could come out for a drink with me occasionally. Sure. Mary. Ha ha. Emily's face is priceless. Anyway, you two enjoy the rest of your time together. With that, Mary waved her hand and left the venue. Left alone, Emily and I looked at each other. After a brief silence, Emily spoke first. Ryan, thank you so much for helping me today. Thanks to you, both the reception and the speech were a great success. And you even helped mend things with Mary. It's because you were by my side, Ryan, that I could smile and stand strong today. Thank you, truly. Seeing that smile, the feelings I had tried to suppress started to overflow. I had decided once to give up, but I realized I didn't want to part ways without saying anything. I didn't want to have regrets. That feeling pushed me forward. I like you, Emily. I know you have someone you love, but even if there's no chance, I wanted you to know. What? I'm glad I met you. From now on, we'll go back to being just boss and subordinate, but please continue to treat me well. Wait a moment. Ha! Emily cut me off and took out that faded bookmark, the one she had shown me before, from her bag where it had been tucked between the speech notes. Ryan, does this look familiar? It's the bookmark you showed me before, right? The one you said you got from someone you love. No, not the bookmark. Look at the flower itself. At her words, I stared closely at the flower. In that instant, the scene from the dream I occasionally saw came flooding back to me. The girl's face, which had always been blurry in my dreams, now became crystal clear in my memory. Thank you. Those were my awkward, broken words spoken shortly after I arrived in Japan. The girl who heard them smiled gently, her eyes filled with tears. We'll meet again someday, Ryan. In her hand was a single flower. A small, blue flower I had picked as a final gift for the girl who had been so kind to me. Do you remember, Ryan? Her voice made my chest tighten. The girl from back then? Emily nodded with a smile. It was shortly after we returned to Japan following my father's overseas assignment. Having spent most of my life abroad since I was a child, I struggled to adjust to Japan, unable to read, write, or speak Japanese. I stood out completely, seen as a child who looks Japanese but isn't really Japanese. I couldn't adapt to the new school I had started attending and felt lost. That's when a classmate reached out to me. She, too, seemed out of place at school. I was always left out because they said I was too high and mighty or a spoiled rich girl, so I was always alone. Then you transferred, Ryan. I was so happy that you didn't run away when I talked to you. I guess we were similar in a way. Unable to take that extra step, we both ended up being isolated, growing lonelier. We couldn't even speak the same language, but before we knew it, we started spending a lot of time together. She was a girl with a lovely smile. I felt comfortable around her. But those days didn't last long. I had to transfer again because my father got a job at the headquarters. I wanted to express my gratitude, so I gave her that flower along with the word thank you, which I had practiced many times. The flower you gave me that day, Ryan. I didn't want it to wither, so I pressed it into a bookmark like this. It's precious to me because it came from someone I loved. Wait, so the person you love. Ever since then, there's only been one person I've loved. My first love. Emily smiled as she spoke. She had grown up a lot since then, looking so much more mature and beautiful, but there was still a hint of that innocent smile from those days. Seeing that smile made my heart feel like it was filling with warmth. When I first saw you at the company, I recognized you right away as Ryan. But you didn't notice me at all, and it was a bit of a shock. So, I ended up acting cold and childish. I'm sorry. I see. I'm the one who should be sorry for not realizing sooner. But when I heard your confession earlier, it made me so happy. It meant you were seeing me for who I am, even without the memory of our past. Isn't that right? Emily gazed at me intently. Emily. Ryan. Her eyes were glistening with emotion, and my heart started pounding loudly again. Ryan. I'm so happy. With those words, Emily threw herself into my chest. I wrapped my arms around her. Feeling her warmth, tears welled up in my eyes. Something I had always wanted but never been able to grasp. A precious person I was finally able to hold for the first time. Emily, thank you for remembering me. And thank you, Ryan, for coming back to me. Since then, I've continued working at the same company where Emily is. My childhood experiences and the language skills I developed thanks to my father's advice helped make the recent reception a success, which boosted my confidence. I've started to feel a new sense of passion and purpose in my work. Emily also told me that I'm a good teacher, so now I'm participating in an internal language training project, keeping me quite busy. Since that incident, Mary has become even more proactive in supporting Emily, and their partnership has become quite the talk both inside and outside the company. Emily, too, has been putting even more effort into her work, aiming to be recognized as a successor candidate by her father. Her natural hard work and patience in steadily building her skills have begun to be acknowledged, and she's now been chosen to attend a reception at the French headquarters as a representative for President, Mr. Anderson. To prepare for this, Emily and I have been doing French lessons together. Unlike before, our relationship is now public, so the lessons take place at my house. French is so hard. I think I'm struggling more than I did with English. Yeah, it can feel difficult because it sounds unfamiliar, and the nouns have genders. But once you get used to it, you'll be fine. You say that so easily. She pouted, resting her chin on her hand with her cheeks puffed out. Seeing this childlike side of Emily, who is usually so cool and admired by everyone at the office, made me smile. However, noticing that my smile seemed to lower her motivation, I gently patted her head to encourage her. Emily, you're such a hard worker, you'll pick it up quickly. Besides, aren't we going to have tea at a cafe with a view of the Eiffel Tower? Yes, we are. Then let's give it our best shot, okay? Okay. With that one word, she straightened up and began reading the French phrases she had written in her notes. Amused by how quickly she switched gears, I found her adorable and hugged her from behind. Ryan, please don't distract me from studying. Take a little break. You tend to push yourself too hard. Oh, come on. That's the opposite of what you just said. We laughed together. Even these casual conversations felt like happiness. I used to think that the things I cherished most would always slip through my fingers. So, I decided to give up on them, to protect my heart from getting hurt. But she taught me a different way of thinking, that I could work hard and hold on to what mattered instead of letting it slip away. I may still have only a few things I can keep in my grasp, but I hope to add more as time goes on. I want to grow stronger together with her. RIP. RIP. The important manual I had created was torn to shreds the moment I handed it over. You're so damn annoying, over and over again. Even my words of caution were flat out rejected. The new boss wouldn't listen to a single piece of advice I offered. But I thought if I could just endure, if I kept trying, things would eventually change. That's what I believed as I kept pushing forward. You're fired. You're in my way, and I don't want to see you here tomorrow. Dismissal notice by the new boss rang out across the office. Everyone's eyes were on him, but their hearts were with me. Sam, how do I handle this? Oh, just confirm with the client before sending it out. Confirm, you mean by phone, right? I'm still not used to handling calls. I wasn't good at it either when I first started. You'll get the hang of it after each call. Don't worry. Okay. I'll give it my best shot. My name is Sam Harrison, 39 years old. In this industry, my name is fairly well known. I work here at Top Tax Advisors as a tax accountant. The person I was just talking to was Yvonne, one of the new hires. She's a first-year employee. She's just graduated from college, and her business etiquette and language skills are still quite clumsy, making her seem very fresh and inexperienced. I used to be like that too. I joined the company 17 years ago. Fresh out of college, not knowing left from right. It was the current manager, Mr. Harris, who taught me so much back then. I remember constantly apologizing to everyone because I had no idea what I was doing. But Mr. Harris was always patient, guiding me step by step. He taught me everything, from how to do the job to tips on how to talk to clients, even how to slack off in moderation. Listen, Sam. No one is good at this from the start. I learned the ropes from my seniors the same way. Right now, make mistakes. Absorb as much as you can. Someday, when you have juniors, I want you to pass on what you've learned. Although, I'll probably still learn a lot from you newcomers too. Every time I teach something to my juniors, I remember those words from Mr. Harris. I was never good at studying, and I didn't even know this job of a tax accountant existed. Whenever I opened a workbook, I'd immediately start feeling sleepy. I was always getting failing grades on school tests. Worried, my mother asked Kyle, who lived nearby, to tutor me. Kyle, who used to play with me when I was a kid, had earned the nickname Kai. At some point, he disappeared, but he had come back as a certified tax accountant. Hey, Sam. Long time no see. I heard you hate studying? Kai. That's the first thing you say to me after all this time? While I'm at it, let's do some studying. Kai was really good at teaching and knew just how to balance rewards and discipline. Whenever I was losing motivation, Kai would talk about his work. As a tax accountant, Kai's stories were often complex, but seeing the passion in his eyes made me wonder if the job was really that fulfilling. While listening to him talk about his job, my test scores gradually improved, and before I knew it, I was no longer failing. Seeing this, my friends started asking, "What kind of magic did you use? And can you teach me how to study?" Kai taught me both the joy of learning and the satisfaction of teaching others. And as I grew more interested in the work he was doing, I found myself wanting to become a tax accountant too. With Kai occasionally helping me study, I managed to pass the tax accountant exam. Once I joined the company, Mr. Harris taught me the ins and outs of the job, and I slowly started improving my skills as an accountant. At first, my sales record wasn't great, but I really enjoyed building relationships with clients through conversation. Before I knew it, clients started chatting casually with me, saying things like, "My daughter just had a baby," or "Should I introduce you to someone nice?" As we built these relationships, those clients began referring new business to me. With the help of the people around me, my sales numbers gradually improved. By the time I got the hang of things, I had my own juniors, and before I knew it, I was being assigned as a mentor. Remembering what Mr. Harris had taught me, I passed on my own experiences to help guide the next generation. Sam, listen up. I got my first contract today. Wow, that's awesome. You really put in the effort, Shawn. Well, it's all thanks to everything you taught me, Sam. Let's go out for dinner tonight, it's on me. No way, let me treat you to celebrate your first contract. My juniors were great at thinking for themselves, sharing information, and creating a strong team where everyone helped one another. Whenever they had successes or concerns, they would come to me to talk. I felt happy knowing they relied on me. As the busy but fulfilling days went by, we eventually got a new hire. Everyone, this is Kevin. He'll be working with us starting today. I'm Kevin, and I've just been assigned to the sales department as its manager. Looking forward to working with everyone. Manager? Kevin, if you need any help, just ask Sam. The new employee assigned to us is Kevin Carter, 25 years old. He looked so young that I asked Mr. Harris about him. It turns out Kevin had just passed the tax accountant exam and was new to the field. Mr. Harris, why is someone who just passed the exam, with almost no real-world experience, being made a department manager? He has to learn the job first, he'll burn out. Actually, Kevin is the son of my old mentor. He's tried to get into a few firms, but none worked out. So, I was asked to take him on. Still, that doesn't mean he should be made a manager. I thought the same, but when I think about Mr. Carter, I'm sorry for deciding this on my own. I'd like to ask you to guide Kevin. You're good at teaching. Mr. Harris. For now, I'll have Kevin focus on learning the basics. I'm still going to rely on Andrew for the managerial work, so don't worry. Just help Kevin learn the ropes. If Mr. Harris asked me, I had no reason to refuse. Regardless of his background, Kevin was still a new employee. He was probably just as anxious and confused as any new hire. First, I'd focus on teaching him the basics and getting to know what kind of person he was. Kevin, I'll start by showing you the basic tasks. We get a lot of calls from clients, so whoever's available handles phone support. Have you ever done that before? Never. Alright, I'll show you how it's done. Next time, can you give it a try? Anne? Wait, I'm the manager here, right? Yeah, that's right. Then I shouldn't be doing the stuff regular employees do, right? Even though you're the manager, this is your first time working as a tax accountant, so why are you talking to me so casually? I'm the manager here, so I outrank you. Show some respect. I'm sorry. Shh. I'm the manager, so you do the basic tasks. What's your name again? Sam? Yeah, you handle all that for me. Kevin turned out to be much more prideful than I had expected, and he didn't listen to a word I said since I had a lower position than him. His father, Mr. Harris's mentor, was now a college director with connections everywhere. Kevin had been using his father's name to push his way through whatever he wanted. But I wasn't about to give up after just one setback. I kept looking for chances to teach Kevin, offering guidance and giving him manuals whenever I could. Each time, though, I was met with harsh replies. I told you, I'm not doing it. If you had time to make this manual, you could have spent it doing some actual sales calls, don't you think? Whether he found my persistence annoying or had disliked me from the start, Kevin began harassing me. He'd call me over while I was talking with other juniors, telling me, go get lunch or check these documents, assigning me menial tasks. And, loud enough for me to hear, he'd say things like, nice try scoring points, or what a sad old man. I thought I was somewhat used to handling complaints that came into the office, but hearing such direct insults still hit hard. After another round of harassment, I took a break in the lounge with a cup of coffee when my coworker and old friend Kenneth approached me. Hey! Kenneth, it's rare for you to come here, especially since you're an admin. I had a question about the accounting software, though, honestly, that was just an excuse to check on you. You heard something? Word is that our top mentor, you, are struggling. How are you holding up? Well, yeah, it's been tough, but I'll manage. If you ever can't, make sure to speak up. Thanks, I appreciate it. After a few more words, Kenneth returned to his department. Kenneth was my closest friend in the office. We always went out for drinks when something came up. Knowing that someone cared about me was a great source of strength. The next day, and the day after, I continued trying to teach Kevin about the job and handling paperwork. But all I got in return were more insults. Though I never got angry at someone so much younger than me, my other juniors were starting to get visibly frustrated. What's up with him? Sam handles all his sales targets and more, and still gets treated like that. Calm down, Yvonne. No, I agree with her. That guy doesn't even know how great you are. Shawn, calm down. I'm fine, okay? If you say so, but we're not okay with it. By the way, about that document for the tax office, it's a bit tricky and really important, so if you're unsure, feel free to ask me. I was just about to ask you about it. Shawn, that's unfair. I want to learn too. One at a time. As tax accountants, we handle tax representation, document preparation, and accounting work, everything tied to money. Even one mistake on a form could lead to significant losses. If there's an error, we could face huge damages and lose the client's trust. That's why we always approach every document with great care. When my juniors prepare documents, I make sure to double-check everything before submission. I'd better remind Kevin, too. Kevin, have you finished the document due next week? It can be confusing for a first-timer, so I can help you go over it. Annoying. Sorry, what? I said it's fine. I already finished it ages ago. That's impressive. Let me take a look at it. Even one mistake could lead to liability issues. I told you, it's fine. I got it. In the end, Kevin never showed me the document. I hoped it would turn out okay. Even the day before the deadline, I tried reaching out, but he shrugged me off again. I had no choice but to hope he managed it somehow. About a little while after the submission, Mr. Harris came rushing into the sales department. Out of breath, a rare sight. Kevin, the document you submitted the other day, it had errors. What? Didn't you consult Sam about how important that form is? How are you going to fix this? Your mistake is going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. I was going to ask Sam, but he ignored me. It's all his fault. Is that true, Sam? No, Sam's been ignoring me since I joined. Every time I tried to do something, he blocked me. I'm using my authority as department manager to fire him. He's out. Mr. Harris looked like he wanted to say something, but perhaps out of deference to his mentor, he didn't speak up. My juniors wanted to take my case to upper management, but I told them not to. I explained that Kevin might retaliate and that they still had a lot to learn here. Maybe this was fate. As much as I cared for my juniors, it seemed there was nothing left for me to do in this office. That same day, I packed up my personal belongings. As I was leaving the office for the last time, Mr. Harris called out to me. I'm sorry. It's all right. I'm just glad I had you as my mentor, Mr. Harris. With those words, I left the office that had meant so much to me. Since Kevin arrived, every day had felt like a whirlwind, though I couldn't even call what I did for him mentoring. I was so worn out that I didn't even feel angry anymore. Leaving a job I loved, not by my own choice, left me feeling sad and unsettled. A storm of mixed emotions swirled inside me. Even now, I'm hungry. Guess that means I'm still alive. Come to think of it, I hadn't had a proper meal in a while. Since I don't have to go to work tomorrow, I might as well grab something to eat. Just then, a ramen shop caught my eye. The banner out front read garlic ramen. I'd avoided garlic since I interacted with people all the time in sales. But now, I wouldn't be talking to anyone for a while. Alright, let's go all out with garlic tonight. Welcome. Just one. Take any open seat. What can I get for you? I'll have the garlic ramen with extra garlic. And some gyoza, too. Got it. The energy of the ramen shop staff was almost overwhelming. It had been years since I'd been to a ramen shop. As I drank my water, I felt the heat and unspoken words that had built up inside me drain away. Before I knew it, the garlic-packed ramen and gyoza were in front of me. I clasped my hands together and dove in, devouring the meal with gusto. Hey, you've got a great appetite. Did something good happen? Ha! You were eating like it was the best thing ever. Oh, ha, I guess it's because it's been a while since I've had garlic ramen last time. It's really good. Thanks a lot. The friendly ramen shop staff. The delicious food. I could feel my whole body being cleansed of the heaviness that had weighed me down. No use dwelling on things. That's right. I can make something new. Once I stopped worrying, new thoughts started filling my mind. No time like the present. After enjoying my meal at the ramen shop, I immediately went to visit the clients I'd built relationships with during my time at Top Tax Advisors. These were people I had been working with since I first joined the company. They listened to me with genuine concern. You quit, Sam? What happened? If there's anything we can do, just say the word. I don't know if it'll help, but take this with you. I was overwhelmed by their warmth and kindness. At the same time I greeted my clients, I also shared my plans for the future. Many of them responded with, "If you ever need help, I'd love to support you." I was truly grateful. Once I got home, I started preparing for the new venture that had taken root in my mind. And 1 month later, it's done. Yes, I had successfully opened my own office. I created flyers and built a website. I also posted job listings on recruitment sites, so hopefully, applicants will start coming in soon. Ring, ring, ring. Could it be already? Hello, this is Harrison Tax Office. Sam. Long time no talk. This voice. Yvonne? Yes. What's going on? Well, after you left, we all quit too. All? Yep. So please, hire us at your office. What? No way. As I listened to her explain, it turned out that after I left, my junior's motivation dropped. Seeing that, Kevin started throwing around harsh words that went way beyond encouragement. He began harassing them the same way he had done to me. Unable to bear it, my juniors had found out through clients that I had started my own office, and here we were. I decided to take them on as new employees. They worked with the energy of plants finally getting sunlight and water after a long drought. Soon, clients I had worked with before started reaching out to my new office as well. Every day became busy and fulfilling. Then one day, my old friend Kenneth, from Top Tax Advisors, showed up. Hey, you traitor. Kenneth. You didn't even say goodbye, let alone tell me you were starting something new. Sorry, things got so hectic. I forgot. Yeah, I figured as much. I told you to let me know if things went south. Here, this is a gift for your independence. Thanks, man. How's it going over there? Well, things have been rough in the sales department since you left. Kenneth then told me what happened after I quit. Apparently, my clients were split between the juniors, Mr. Harris and Kevin, but Kevin's handling often led to complaints. The workload became too much, and mistakes started piling up. Mr. Harris had to personally deal with Kevin's errors and all the complaints that followed, eventually leading to him being hospitalized with acute gastritis. Mr. Harris. He's in the hospital? So what's going to happen to the sales department? With Mr. Harris out, there's no one who can really run the department, so they're thinking about shutting it down. I see. Why do you look so down about it? It's just, I learned so much there. Do you know which hospital Mr. Harris is in? Man, I'm in the admin department. I know everything about our employees. You planning to visit him? Yeah. After chatting for a while, we made plans to grab drinks sometime, and Kenneth headed out. On my next day off, I used the information Kenneth gave me to visit Mr. Harris at the hospital. It was a big hospital, and Mr. Harris had his own private room. I knocked on the door, and I heard his voice from inside. Sam. Long time no see. I heard from Kenneth that you were in the hospital. Are you okay? Yeah, it's something I brought on myself. But I hear you've started your own office. How's it going? It's going all right, somehow managing. Yvonne, Shawn, and the others, are they doing well? Mr. Harris, you knew? Knew? I'm the one who told them to go to you. Really? I didn't know that. I put you through a lot, all because of my mentor. I'm truly sorry. Mr. Harris, you already apologized when I left the office. Did I? We talked for a while about recent events and reminisced about the old days when I first joined as a new hire. Mr. Harris was still the same respected mentor I had always looked up to. Before I knew it, the day had turned to dusk. I'll come by again. With that, I left his hospital room. After talking with Mr. Harris, I felt even more motivated and threw myself into my work. I focused on training my juniors, developing new clients. There was always something to do. While managing the staff schedules, I used any free time to hold training sessions to help everyone improve their skills as tax accountants. I let my juniors take turns preparing the training, so they could better grasp the material. They were enthusiastic and vibrant, just like Kai had been all those years ago. Though my office was smaller than the one I had worked at before, we had built stable relationships with our clients. I assigned clients to my juniors, stepping in to assist when needed. This allowed them to learn the ropes as tax accountants while fostering trust with their clients. Some even found common ground, like when one junior discovered he had gone to the same school with a client's daughter, leading to lively conversations. Other times, a client would bring throat lozenges for a junior who had a cold. Each junior was developing strong relationships with their clients, using their unique strengths. We feel confident leaving everything in Sam's hands. I haven't seen that young one recently. Is he doing all right? Make sure Sam and his team eat these. We had a great harvest, so many vegetables. I received many warm words and gestures. With so much help from those around me, I tackled each day with determination. Before I knew it, my office had gained quite the reputation among peers in the industry. I hear Harrison Tax Office is known for its excellent training. Yeah, I heard they have great in-house training programs, and you can level up your skills quickly. This buzz even brought in people interested in interviews. Bit by bit, more people gathered, and my office grew larger. Now that we've gotten this big. What's up, Sam? Why are you grumbling? Oh, Yvonne. Well, with the increase in staff and contracts, I'm worried the workload might be getting too heavy for everyone. Yeah. I think our overtime hours have gone up a bit. That's what I figured. But I've been posting jobs on the recruitment sites. Then, how about this? Yvonne handed me a flyer. Looking for a change? Now's the time. Find your next opportunity at the job change fair. Wait, is this? It's for a career fair. Where did you get this? It came in a sales email recently. The flyer was attached, and I thought, with all the new contracts coming in, this might be a good way to recruit more people. I meant to mention it to you, but I kind of forgot. A career fair, huh? That's a great idea. Let's give it a try. Got it. With Yvonne's suggestion, we decided to participate in the career fair. Along with our daily tasks, we were busy preparing for the job fair. It was tough, but everyone worked hard without a single complaint. The late-night work sessions reminded us of school festivals, and I think the atmosphere made everyone a bit more excited than usual. Finally, the day of the fair arrived. As we set up our booth, I noticed Yvonne's expression darkening. Yvonne, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? Sam, there's someone here I really don't want to see. I followed her gaze and saw Kevin. He was at the fair too. But his face was somber, and he seemed to have lost the spark he once had. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but feel concerned. Yvonne, can you handle the booth for a bit? What? Sam, are you seriously going over there? You should just leave him alone. I can't ignore him. I was once responsible for mentoring him. All right. I'll take care of things here, but please come back soon, okay? I will. Thanks. I left the booth in Yvonne's hands and headed toward Kevin. When he saw me, Kevin looked surprised for a moment, then quickly lowered his head. Long time no see. Kevin, what do you want? I saw you from a distance and noticed you didn't seem well. At that, Kevin's shoulders started shaking and tears rolled down his face. He slowly began to speak, haltingly. After I left, he realized how much he couldn't do on his own and that he'd only managed before because I had been there to support him. I passed the tax accountant exam and felt like I could do anything. My dad praised me so much. I thought I didn't need anyone, especially after you left. I thought I could handle it all by myself. I see. But in the real world, things didn't go like I thought. I ran into situations I wasn't prepared for, and complaints came in because of my attitude. Mr. Harris didn't say anything, maybe because of my dad, but the sales department is gone now, and everyone's saying it's my fault. I see. As I listened to Kevin, I learned that he was the long-awaited child of the Carter family, cherished by everyone. Neither his parents nor his grandparents had ever scolded him, letting him do whatever he wanted. And apparently, they would praise him even for the smallest things. Because of that, Kevin has become quite prideful and developed a bit of an arrogant streak. This whole experience made me realize I don't have any real ability. I want to change that and develop my skills. But I got into the firm because of my dad's connections. This time, I want to earn a place somewhere on my own. So that's why you're here? Yeah. Kevin, if you're willing, why not come work at my office? What? Are you crazy? I'm the one who got you fired. You were someone I was tasked with mentoring. I feel like I bear some responsibility for your actions too. How about it? We're actually short-staffed at the moment. If you're up for it, please, let me join. I'm glad to hear that. Let's head back to our booth so I can explain everything to you. I took Kevin by the arm and led him to our booth. Yvonne furrowed her brows at first, but when Kevin apologized, she looked completely stunned. Clearing her throat, she began explaining our firm in detail. By then, Kevin's tears had long dried, and he clutched a pen and notepad, listening intently to Yvonne, making sure not to miss a single word. And just like that, we gained a new team member at our office. Since most of our employees already knew Kevin, they, too, initially greeted him with frowns. But, much like Yvonne, they were left speechless when he apologized to them. Kevin, how about joining me for some client visits today? Got it. Got it? Shouldn't it be yes, ma'am? Come on, Yvonne. Sam may be kind, but I'm going to be strict. I'm the senior here. So bossy. I heard that, Kevin. Sorry. All right, Yvonne, calm down. Wasn't Eric supposed to come by today? Oh. That's right. I'm heading out with Kevin for making the rounds, so take care. If anything happens, make sure to let me know. Got it. Kevin, make sure to watch Sam closely and learn from him. Yeah, I got it. Kevin slowly gained more confidence as he worked alongside his senior colleagues. And after a month, he was able to land his first contract on his own. Kevin worked hard to make sure he lived up to what he told me at the job fair. He actively participated in company training sessions, even stepping up to lead some of them. When I think back to the time he worked at his previous office, it's like he's a completely different person now. When I mentioned this to Mr. Harris, his eyes lit up with pride, almost as if he were talking about his own son. I see. He really worked hard. Didn't he? He said. I also mentioned it to Kenneth, and he seriously asked, "What kind of magic did you use?" Word spread quickly about our office's strong commitment to nurturing young talent, and before long, we became the #1 tax office in the area that new hires wanted to join. As more new employees joined, Kevin took on the role of mentor, helping train the younger staff. When Kevin first trained a junior employee, we went out for a meal together afterward. It's my first time teaching someone anything. And today, the junior I was mentoring thanked me, Kevin said. What did they say? They said, "Thank you." Hearing that, it almost made me cry. I see. That's wonderful. Teaching someone is actually a lot more fun than I thought. I learned that same joy from an older guy in the neighborhood when I was younger. That guy must have been amazing. As Kevin and I talked about different things, I remembered something Mr. Harris had once said. We actually learn a lot from you newcomers as well. Talking with Yvonne, Kevin, and the other juniors often reminded me of things I used to feel and think. Yes, I was the same way back then. Conversations with the juniors always brought me back to those early days. After some time had passed since I established Harrison Tax Office, the juniors I had mentored started training the newly hired employees. The juniors they trained supported one another while building their own relationships with clients. Shawn, who had rushed to join us along with Yvonne, seemed to struggle with his sales performance. Possibly because he was dedicating too much time to training his juniors. Noticing this, Yvonne and Kevin helped with Shawn's mentoring duties, taking turns to support him. Thanks to their help, Shawn managed to secure a new contract. Sam, I landed a contract. Isn't it because we helped you out? Can't you let me look good just this once? One of the juniors you're mentoring said my explanations were easier to understand. Should we just take over for you? What? Hey, I appreciate the help, but those are my juniors. You're trying to handle too much, Shawn. You're going to burn out. Oh my, have you started worrying about others now? Sam, why are you laughing? I'm just thinking how dependable you've become. The juniors had grown even more than I had expected. There's no limit to human potential. Everyone has some kind of strength. As a mentor, it's our job to create an environment where they can discover that strength and use it to its fullest potential. Things don't always go smoothly, but rather than trying to handle everything on your own, it's okay to ask for help and move forward at your own pace. Some people try to take on everything themselves, leaving no room for escape, but that approach won't last in the long run. I value my own pace, and today, I continue to nurture new talent while helping and supporting my juniors and those around me.